You wanted the smell of success. Here's the real thing.
My name is Alec Griffin, and I'm about to tell you how I turned my life from a bad sitcom into the greatest revenge story this side of the Mississippi. But first, let me paint you a picture of what rock bottom looks like when you're 42, manage a hardware store, and your wife thinks you're about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. "Alec, honey," Trisha called from the kitchen, her voice dripping with that special kind of sweetness that meant trouble was coming. "Could you grab the wine? Our friends are here for game night." Our friends? Right. Like Derek Hale, the real estate hotshot with his red Corvette and gym-sculpted ego, was my friend. Like Lisa Martinez, Trisha's college roommate who looked at me like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe, was my friend. Like Marcia and Rick from down the street, who whispered behind their hands every time I walked by, were my friends. I grabbed the bottle of cheap Merlot because apparently my hardware store manager's salary couldn't stretch to the good stuff, and headed into our living room. The gang was all there, arranged around our coffee table like vultures circling roadkill. Derek sprawled across half the couch, his designer polo shirt stretched tight across his chest. Lisa perched next to Trisha, already giggling about something. Marcia and Rick occupied the love seat, and my buddy Tom sat in the corner chair, the only person in the room who didn't make me feel like an intruder in my own house. "There's our host," Derek announced, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that probably closed deals and opened bedroom doors in equal measure. "Alec, buddy, you're looking comfortable." Comfortable. That was Derek speak for like a slob. I glanced down at my worn jeans and faded flannel shirt, then at his perfectly pressed khakis and Italian leather shoes. Yeah, we definitely shopped in different universes. "Thanks, Derek, you're looking expensive," Tom snorted into his drink. At least someone appreciated my wit. "So what's the game tonight?" I asked, settling into the remaining chair, the rickety one that wobbled whenever you moved. "Truth or dare," Trisha announced, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "But the grown-up version. Truth questions only, and they have to be real." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from truth games in this crowd. Last time we played, I'd learned more about our neighbors' bedroom habits than any decent person should know. "I'll start," Lisa said, turning to Marcia. "If you could change one thing about Rick, what would it be?" Marcia giggled. "His snoring. Sounds like a freight train with a sinus infection." Everyone laughed. Rick took it good-naturedly, probably because he was already 3 drinks in. The questions continued around the circle. Derek admitted he'd lied about his golf handicap. Tom confessed to having a crush on the barista at the coffee shop. Safe stuff. Harmless. Then it was Trisha's turn, and Derek was asking the question. "Trisha," he said, leaning forward with that predatory grin, "if you could marry anyone in this room, anyone at all, who would it be?" The room went quiet. I felt every eye in the place turn toward me, then back to Trisha. My wife of 15 years looked around the circle, her gaze lingering on each face before finally settling on mine. "Anyone?" she asked. "Anyone," Derek confirmed. Trisha took a long sip of wine, set down her glass, and smiled. "Well, that's easy, Derek." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Lisa's mouth fell open. Marcia looked like she'd been slapped. Tom stared at his shoes. Derek laughed first, breaking the tension. "Wow, Trisha, that's honest." "The game is about truth," she said, shrugging. "If I'm being completely honest, I'd want someone successful. Someone with ambition. Someone who doesn't think managing a hardware store is the pinnacle of achievement." Each word hit like a physical blow. I sat there, frozen, while my wife systematically dismantled our marriage in front of our friends. The worst part? She was enjoying it. I could see it in her eyes, the thrill of finally saying what she'd been thinking for years. "Trisha," Tom started, but she cut him off. "What? It's just a game. Alec knows I'm kidding." She looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to laugh it off, to play the good sport like I always did. Instead, I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and pulled out the manila envelope I'd hidden behind the coffee maker 3 days ago, the one I'd been carrying around like a talisman, waiting for the right moment. When I returned to the living room, everyone was staring at me. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, weighted with 15 years of accumulated disappointments and small humiliations. "You know what, Trisha?" I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You're absolutely right. This is about truth." I slid the envelope across the coffee table. It landed right in front of her wine glass with a soft thud. What's this? She asked, but I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. Divorce papers. Already signed on my end. Your turn. The room exploded. Lisa gasped. Marcia started talking rapidly to Rick. Derek sat back like he'd been punched. Tom just nodded slowly like he'd been expecting this moment for years, but I only watched Trisha. Watched as she opened the envelope with shaking hands. Watched as she scanned the first page, her face going pale under her carefully applied makeup. Alec, you can't be serious, she whispered. Oh, I'm serious as a heart attack. You want someone successful? Someone with ambition? Go get him. I gestured toward Derek, who suddenly looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I'm sure he'd love to trade up from whatever flavor of the month he's currently seeing. Now, wait just a minute, Derek started, but I held up my hand. No, Derek, you don't get to talk. You've been sniffing around my wife for months, thinking I'm too stupid to notice. Well, congratulations, she's all yours. I headed for the door, grabbing my jacket from the hook. Behind me, chaos erupted. Trisha was crying. Lisa was trying to comfort her. Marcia was interrogating Rick about whether he'd known. Derek was making excuses and heading for the exit. Only Tom followed me outside. You okay, man? He asked. I looked back at my house, at the warm light spilling from the windows, at the shadows of people I'd thought were friends moving around inside. Then I looked at Tom, the one person who'd never made me feel small. You know what, Tom? For the first time in years, I think I might be... That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've learned a few things about myself. First, I'm a lot smarter than people give me credit for. Second, I'm a lot angrier than I thought possible. And third, when you've got nothing left to lose, you can accomplish some pretty amazing things. The divorce papers were just the opening move. What came next was going to be legendary. The Riverside Motel wasn't exactly the Four Seasons, but it was clean, cheap, and most importantly, it was mine. Room 237 had become my headquarters, my fortress of solitude, my base of operations for what I'd started calling Project Payback. The room came with a sagging double bed, a desk that wobbled if you breathed on it wrong, and a coffee maker that produced something resembling motor oil. But it also came with something I hadn't had in years. Peace and quiet. No Trisha commenting on my clothes, my job, my general existence. No Derek dropping by unexpectedly to borrow tools and flirt with my wife. No Lisa rolling her eyes every time I opened my mouth. Just me, a stack of legal documents, and a laptop I'd bought with the money from our joint savings account, which I'd legally emptied the day after serving papers. Trisha had been furious about that, calling me 17 times in one day. I'd let every call go to voicemail. The best part about moving out wasn't the freedom, though. It was what I'd found before I left. See, Trisha had always been terrible with technology. She'd set up our shared iCloud account years ago and promptly forgotten about it. Every photo she took, every message she sent, every document she created automatically synced to our shared laptop, the one she'd assumed I never used because I was too old to understand computers. Turns out, this old dog had learned a few new tricks. I opened the laptop and navigated to the folder I'd created, Evidence. Inside were screenshots of text messages, photos, and, the crown jewel, audio recordings from her girls' night group chat sessions. Trisha and her crew had been using some app called Discord to talk while they played online games together. What they didn't realize was that the app automatically saved voice messages to the cloud. What they really didn't realize was that I'd been downloading every single one for the past 6 months. I clicked on a file labeled Lisa_March15.mp3 and listened to my wife's best friend deliver a monologue that would have made a sailor blush. I swear, Trisha, I don't know how you stand it. Alec's like a human sleeping pill. Remember when he told that story about the customer who couldn't figure out which end of the hammer to use? I wanted to crawl under the table and hide. Trisha's laughter came through crystal clear. Oh, honey, that's nothing. You should see him try to fix things around the house. Last week, he spent 3 hours trying to install a new toilet seat. A toilet seat. I could have done it in 5 minutes, but God forbid I hurt his masculine pride. More laughter. Then Marcia's voice joined in. At least he tries. Rick doesn't even pretend to be handy. But seriously, Trisha, don't you ever want more? More what? You know, excitement, passion, a man who makes you feel alive. A pause. Then Trisha's voice, softer but clear. Actually, I might have found that. My heart had stopped when I first heard that part. Now, listening to it for the dozenth time, it just made me angry. Spill! Lisa demanded. Derek Hale! Squeals of excitement from the group chat. I fast-forwarded through the giggles and got to the good stuff. We've been talking, Trisha continued. A lot. He's everything Alec isn't. Confident, successful, exciting. He drives that gorgeous Corvette. He's got that amazing house on Maple Street. And God, the way he looks at me. Trisha Marie Griffin, Marcia interrupted. Are you having an affair? Not yet, but maybe soon. I'd heard enough. I closed the audio file and opened another folder, photos. This one contained screenshots from Trisha's Instagram DMs with Derek. Innocent enough on the surface, comments about real estate, compliments on her posts, suggestions to meet for coffee. But when you read them all together, chronologically, a pattern emerged. Derek was good at this. He'd started slow, professional. Then came the personal compliments, the suggestions to meet privately, the inside jokes, the photos of expensive restaurants with captions like, "Wish I had someone special to share this with." Classic predator behavior. The kind of thing that would look really bad if, say, someone were to compile it all into a nice, neat presentation and share it with the right people. I was deep in my research when someone knocked on my motel room door. 3 sharp raps, pause, 3 more, Tom's signal. "It's open," I called. Tom walked in carrying a bag from the Chinese place down the street and a 6-pack of the good stuff, actual craft brew, not the cheap swill I usually drank. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, setting the food on the wobbly desk, "and figured you could use some company that doesn't suck." "You're a good friend, Tom." "Yeah, well, someone's got to keep you from turning into a complete hermit." He popped open 2 drinks and handed me one. "What's all this?" He gestured at the laptop screen, which was currently displaying a particularly damning exchange between Derek and Trisha about meeting at the Riverside restaurant, the fancy place across town where they definitely wouldn't run into anyone they knew. "Research," I said. Tom whistled low. "Wow, Alec, this is comprehensive. 15 years of marriage teaches you to pay attention to details. What are you planning to do with all this?" I took a long drink and considered the question. What was I planning? A week ago, I would have said I just wanted out. Clean break, minimal drama, start over somewhere else. But that was before I'd heard the audio files, before I'd seen how long this had been going on, before I'd realized that my wife and her friends had been treating me like their personal entertainment for years. "I'm going to make them famous," I said finally. "Come again. Trisha wants excitement. Derek wants to be the big man around town. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. I'm going to make sure everyone in this pathetic little city knows exactly who they really are." Tom set down his drink and looked at me seriously. "Alec, I get that you're angry. Heck, I'm angry for you. But be careful. Revenge has a way of eating people alive." "Maybe, but you know what eats you alive faster? Spending the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd actually fought back." We ate in comfortable silence after that, but I could feel Tom watching me. He was worried, and I didn't blame him. The old Alec would have taken his lumps and slunk away quietly. The old Alec would have been too nice, too considerate, too concerned about what other people thought. But the old Alec was gone. He'd been executed in my living room 3 weeks ago, in front of witnesses, by a woman who'd promised to love and honor him until her final breath. What was left was someone new, someone harder, someone who'd learned that being the good guy just made you an easy target. After Tom left, I opened a new document on the laptop and started typing. Phase 1, information gathering. Complete Phase 2, reputation management, in progress. Phase 3, public relations campaign, pending. Phase 4, the grand finale, TBD. I stared at the screen for a long time, cursor blinking after those 3 letters. To be determined. Because, honestly, I wasn't sure how far I was willing to go. I just knew I was tired of being the punchline to everyone else's joke. My phone buzzed. Text message from Trisha. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous. Come home." I typed back, "Home is room 237 at the Riverside Motel. You know where to find me." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Alec, please, I made a mistake. We can work this out." "You made a lot of mistakes, Trisha. I'm just getting started fixing them." This time, no response. I closed the laptop and lay back on the sagging motel bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked remarkably like the state of Texas. Tomorrow, Phase 2 would begin in earnest. Tomorrow, Derek Hale was going to learn that actions have consequences. Tomorrow, the real fun would start. Derek Hale worked out at Platinum Fitness every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at exactly 6 a.m. I knew this because he posted about it constantly on social media, usually with captions like, no days off hash grind never stops, or earning this body hash, no pain, no gain? The man was as predictable as sunrise and twice as annoying. What he didn't post about was his habit of parking in the fire lane, because he was just running in for a quick workout and didn't want to walk an extra 50 feet from the regular parking spots. I'd watched him do it 3 times now, always in that ridiculous red Corvette, always with the same entitled smirk. That was going to change today. I sat in my truck in the Platinum Fitness parking lot at 5:45 a.m., sipping coffee from a thermos and watching the early morning crowd trickle in. Dedicated gym rats, mostly, the kind of people who treated exercise like religion and protein powder like communion wine. Derek would fit right in if he weren't such a poser. At 5:58, the Corvette roared into the lot. Derek pulled right up to the fire lane, just like always, and hopped out wearing designer workout gear that probably cost more than I made in a week. He grabbed his gym bag, locked the car with a theatrical beep-beep from his key fob, and strutted toward the entrance like he owned the place. I waited until he disappeared inside, then got out of my truck and walked over to his car. Beautiful machine, I had to admit. Cherry red paint job, chrome details, leather interior that probably smelled like money and arrogance. Derek babied this thing like it was his firstborn child, which made what I was about to do even sweeter. I pulled a small plastic bag from my jacket pocket. Inside were about 2 dozen raw shrimp I'd bought from the grocery store yesterday. The cashier had given me a weird look when I'd asked for them to be left unpeeled, but money talks and customer service walks. The Corvette's air intake vents were located just behind the front wheels, hidden but accessible if you knew what you were looking for. And thanks to 15 years of working at Griffin Hardware, I knew cars almost as well as I knew power tools. It took me less than 3 minutes to stuff the shrimp deep into both intake vents. By the time Derek finished his workout, the car's air conditioning system would be circulating the smell of rotting seafood throughout that pristine interior. In this heat, it wouldn't take long for things to get interesting. I was back in my truck, innocently reading the newspaper, when Derek emerged from the gym 90 minutes later. He was talking loudly on his phone, probably closing some deal or bragging about his bench press numbers. He climbed into the Corvette, started the engine, and immediately cranked the air conditioning. The reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Derek's face went from smug satisfaction to confusion to absolute disgust in about 3 seconds flat. He started gagging, rolled down the windows, and jumped out of the car like it was on fire. "What the heck?" he shouted, drawing stares from other gym members. He walked around the car, sniffing, trying to figure out where the smell was coming from. When he opened the hood and found nothing obvious, his confusion turned to panic. That's when I decided to make my entrance. "Derek," I called out, walking over with my best concerned neighbor expression. "Everything okay, buddy?" He spun around, and for a second I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Then his usual arrogance kicked in. "Alec, what are you doing here?" "Same thing as you, working out, staying in shape, you know how it is." I gestured toward the Corvette. "Car trouble?" "Something's wrong with the air conditioning. Smells like..." He paused, probably realizing that admitting his precious car smelled like a fish market wasn't great for his image. "Like what?" "Like, I don't know. Something rotten." "Huh, that's weird." I walked closer to the car and made a show of sniffing. "Oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty bad. You might want to get that checked out." Derek was still standing there looking lost when I pulled a small envelope from my pocket and held it out to him. "What's this?" he asked suspiciously. "Just a little something I thought you might enjoy." He opened the envelope and pulled out a single photograph. Derek and Trisha having lunch at the Riverside restaurant, leaning across the table toward each other, her hand on his arm. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 weeks before game night. Derek's face went white. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter? Nice composition, though. Really captures the intimacy of the moment." "Alec, listen." "No, Derek, you listen." I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look up at me. Funny how much shorter he seemed when he wasn't sitting down or standing on his wallet. "I know about the texts. I know about the private meetings. I know about the plans you and my wife have been making. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. But here's the thing. I don't care anymore. Trisha made her choice, and apparently, so did you. So congratulations, you won." Derek looked confused. "I won? Sure, you get the prize. My wife, with all her charm and loyalty and winning personality, You get to be the guy she talks about behind closed doors. You get to be her next project, her next disappointment, her next source of gossip for the girls' chat. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. But here's what you don't get, Derek. You don't get to do it quietly. You don't get to sneak around and pretend you're some kind of romantic hero. You want to play grown-up games? Fine. But we're playing by grown-up rules now. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was open to a group text that included Tom, my coworker Janet, my neighbor Bob, and about 15 other people. Check your messages, I said. Derek fumbled for his phone. When he opened his text app, his face went from white to green. I'd sent the photo to his contact list, not all of them, just the ones I'd been able to identify from his social media posts. His golf buddies, his real estate colleagues, his ex-wife Shannon, who still lived in town and had never quite gotten over their messy divorce. You're insane, he whispered. Maybe, but I'm not stupid, and I'm not invisible, and I'm definitely not going away quietly. I started walking back toward my truck, then turned around. Oh, and Derek? You might want to have that car detailed. Professional job. It's going to take more than air fresheners to fix that problem. I was almost to my truck when Derek called after me. This isn't over, Alec. I stopped and looked back at him, standing next to his stinking Corvette in his expensive workout clothes, holding his phone like it might explode. You're absolutely right, I said. It's not. The drive back to the motel was the most satisfying 20 minutes I'd had in years. My phone was already buzzing with responses to the photo. Tom had sent a thumbs-up emoji. Janet from work had written, "Finally!" My neighbor Bob, who'd never liked Derek anyway, had responded with a string of laughing emojis. But the best response came from someone I hadn't expected, Shannon Hale, Derek's ex-wife. Is this recent? She'd texted. 2 weeks ago, I replied. Interesting. He told me he was focusing on work and staying out of relationships. Thanks for the heads up. I smiled. Derek had no idea what was coming next, but he was about to find out that some secrets have a way of spreading like wildfire. Back in room 237, I opened my laptop and updated my project file. Phase 2. Reputation management, first strike complete. Then I started planning strike number 2, because Derek was right about one thing. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. The Riverside Bar wasn't the classiest joint in town, but it was Trisha and her crew's favorite hangout spot. Every Friday night, you could find them clustered around their usual table in the corner, drinking overpriced cocktails and dissecting everyone else's business like they were performing surgery. I'd been watching them for 3 weeks now, learning their patterns. Trisha always arrived first, claiming the table and ordering for the group. Lisa showed up next, usually complaining about something. Her job, her apartment, her latest dating disaster. Marcia and Aaron rounded out the group, bringing gossip and drama in equal measure. They thought they were untouchable in their little corner booth, whispering and giggling behind their hands like high school mean girls. What they didn't know was that their favorite table was positioned directly under one of the bar's Bluetooth speakers. Speakers that could be paired with any device if you knew the right frequency. And thanks to my nephew Jake, who'd worked here last summer, I knew exactly which frequency that was. I sat at the bar nursing a drink, my phone connected to the speaker system, waiting for the perfect moment. The girls were 3 drinks in and getting loud, which meant they were about to start their weekly ritual of tearing apart everyone they knew. Did you see Jennifer's Facebook post about her promotion? Marcia was saying. Like anyone cares that she's assistant manager at the insurance office now. Right? Aaron agreed. Some people have such low standards for success. That's when Trisha chimed in with the line I'd been waiting for. Speaking of low standards, has anyone heard from Alec lately? The table erupted in giggles. This was it, showtime. I opened the audio file I'd prepared. A greatest hits compilation of their group chat sessions, all the cruel jokes and cutting comments about me, edited together into one devastating montage. Then I pressed play. Trisha's voice filled the bar, crystal clear through the sound system. Alec's like a human sleeping pill. I swear, sometimes I wonder what I was thinking when I married him. The bar went quiet. Every head turned toward the corner table where my wife was sitting frozen with her martini halfway to her lips. Lisa's voice came next. At least he tries, I guess. But God, Trisha, don't you ever want a real man? Then Trisha again. Actually, I might have found that. Derek Hale. The silence in the bar was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop if pins made sounds when they hit sticky barroom floors. Trisha looked around wildly, trying to figure out where the audio was coming from. But I wasn't done yet. The next clip was the crown jewel, recorded just 2 weeks ago. I can't wait to be done with this whole marriage charade, Trisha's voice announced to the entire bar. Alec's pathetic. He actually thinks I still love him. It's almost sad how clueless he is. That's when Trisha spotted me at the bar. Our eyes met across the room, and I raised my glass in a mock toast. "Hello, honey," I called out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Enjoying your girls' night?" The bar erupted. Conversations started up at every table, people pulling out their phones, recording everything. Trisha jumped up from her seat, her face flushed with embarrassment and rage. "Turn it off!" she screamed. "Turn what off?" I asked innocently. The audio had ended, but the damage was done. Half the bar was already posting about it on social media. Trisha stormed over to me, Lisa trailing behind her like a lost puppy. "How dare you?" she hissed. "Those were private conversations." "Were they? Because it sounded to me like you were talking about your husband, that's me, in case you forgot. To a room full of people. Doesn't seem very private." "You recorded us?" "Actually, your app recorded you. I just shared it with some friends. Speaking of which," I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "Looks like you're trending on the neighborhood Facebook group. #TrishaGriffin is getting a lot of engagement." It was true. I'd posted the audio files to 3 different local Facebook groups, along with a caption that read, "Thought you all might be interested in hearing what some people really think about their friends and neighbors. Volume up." The responses were pouring in. Dozens of comments, hundreds of reactions, people sharing their own stories about Trisha and her crew's gossip sessions. It was like watching a dam burst. "You're destroying my reputation," Trisha said, her voice cracking. "No, honey, I'm just sharing your own words. If that destroys your reputation, maybe the problem isn't with me." Lisa finally found her voice. "This is harassment, Alec. We could sue you." "For what? Playing audio of things you actually said? Good luck with that." I finished my drink and stood up. "But hey, if you want to make this a legal matter, I've got a whole folder full of evidence we can discuss in court. Text messages, photos, financial records. Should be fun." Trisha's face went white. She knew exactly what evidence I was talking about. "Alec, please," she said, switching tactics. "We need to talk about this privately, like adults. Adults don't ambush their spouses at game night, Trisha. Adults don't spend months planning affairs and then act surprised when there are consequences." I headed for the door, but turned back one last time. "Oh, and ladies, you might want to check your own social media accounts. Apparently, some of your other conversations have been making the rounds too." That was only partially true. I'd only released the audio about me, but the threat was enough to send them into a panic, frantically checking their phones as I walked out. The parking lot was buzzing with people from the bar, everyone talking about what they'd just witnessed. I heard my name mentioned more times in 5 minutes than it had been in the previous 5 years. My phone was going crazy with notifications, friend requests, messages, comments on the Facebook posts. The whole town was talking, and for once, I wasn't the punchline. I was driving back to the motel when Derek called. "What the heck did you do?" he demanded. "I threw a party. You should have been there. Your girlfriend was the guest of honor." "This is insane, Alec. You're making yourself look crazy." "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I look like a guy who finally got tired of being everyone's favorite joke." People are calling me. My clients, my friends, my family. They're asking about that photo you sent, about Trisha, about how you've been sleeping with a married woman. Yeah, that tends to generate conversation. We haven't slept together. Yet. But you were planning to, right? All those romantic dinners, all those private meetings, all those text messages about how you wished you had someone special to share things with. Silence on the other end. "Here's the thing, Derek. You and Trisha thought you were so clever, sneaking around behind my back. You thought I was too stupid to notice, too weak to fight back. Well, congratulations. You were wrong on both counts." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that the guy you've been treating like a doormat has been paying attention this whole time, and I want you to know that this is just the beginning." I hung up and pulled into the motel parking lot. Room 237 felt like a command center now, with my laptop, my files, my evidence, and my plans spread across every surface. I opened my project file and made another update. Phase 2, Reputation Management, Public Awareness Campaign complete. The audio files were already spreading beyond Facebook. Someone had uploaded them to TikTok with the #smalltowndrama. Another person had created a Twitter thread breaking down the whole story. By morning, half the state would know about Trisha Griffin and her opinions about her husband. But I wasn't done yet. Phase 3 was going to be even better. Because tomorrow, Derek was going to learn what happened when you mess with a hardware store manager who'd spent 15 years learning how to fix things, starting with his reputation. Shannon Hale was everything Derek had described her as, and nothing like what he'd implied. Yes, she was his ex-wife. Yes, their divorce had been messy, but she wasn't the vindictive harpy he'd painted her as in his stories. She was a sharp, successful attorney who'd simply gotten tired of being married to a man-child. I knew this because I'd done my homework. After sending her that photo of Derek and Trisha, I'd looked her up. Law degree from State University, partner at Henderson & Associates, specializing in family law and business litigation. She'd built a solid reputation in town, the kind of woman who commanded respect in courtrooms and boardrooms alike. She was also, according to their divorce decree, entitled to half of Derek's real estate commissions for deals that had been initiated during their marriage but closed afterward. Deals that Derek had been very creative about hiding from the court. I was sitting in the parking lot of Henderson & Associates at 8 a.m. sharp, holding a manila folder that contained everything I'd compiled about Derek's business practices. Bank statements, commission records, client lists, all of it perfectly legal to obtain, thanks to public records and some strategic social media stalking. Shannon emerged from her BMW at exactly 8:15, looking every inch the successful professional in her tailored suit and confident stride. I intercepted her at the building entrance. "Miss Hale?" "My name is Alec Griffin." "I believe we have a mutual acquaintance." She paused, studying my face. "You're the one who sent me that photo of Derek." "Guilty as charged." "What do you want, Mr. Griffin?" 5 minutes of your time. I think you'll find what I have to say very interesting." She checked her watch, then gestured toward the building. 5 minutes, my office." Shannon's office was exactly what you'd expect from a successful attorney. Impressive desk, wall full of diplomas and awards, bookshelves lined with legal texts. She sat behind her desk and folded her hands, waiting. "You said we have a mutual acquaintance," she said. "I assume you mean my ex-husband. Among others, Derek's been seeing my wife. Well, my soon-to-be ex-wife." "I see. And you want what exactly? Legal advice? Representation?" "Neither. I want to give you some information that I think you'll find useful." I slid the folder across her desk. She opened it and began scanning the documents inside. I watched her expression change from polite interest to focused attention to something that looked like satisfaction. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "Public records, mostly, some from social media. Derek's not as careful about his privacy settings as he thinks he is." Shannon held up a bank statement showing a large commission deposit from 3 months ago. "This is from the Morrison property sale. We initiated contact with that client 2 years ago while we were still married. According to the divorce decree, you're entitled to half of that commission." "Yes, which Derek claimed never came through." She flipped to another document. "And this one, and this one. Looks like business has been better than he let on." Shannon leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Mr. Griffin, why are you bringing this to me? What's in it for you?" "Honestly, I want Derek to understand that his actions have consequences. He's been treating people like they don't matter, like he can just take whatever he wants without anyone fighting back. And you're fighting back. I'm evening the score." She smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. "I like that. Tell me, what else do you know about Derek's business practices?" For the next 20 minutes, I laid out everything I'd discovered. The clients he'd poached from other agents using information he'd gained through personal relationships. The properties he'd undervalued to secure quick sales and higher turnover. The creative accounting that had kept money hidden from both the IRS and his ex-wife. "This is quite comprehensive," Shannon said when I finished. "You missed your calling, Mr. Griffin. You would have made an excellent investigator." "I just pay attention to details. 15 years in retail teaches you to notice when things don't add up." "Indeed." She closed the folder and looked at me directly. "I assume you want something in return for this information." "Just one thing. When you take action on this, and I assume you will, make sure Derek knows where the information came from. You want credit for bringing him down. I want him to know that the guy he's been dismissing as a nobody just cost him a significant amount of money and professional credibility." Shannon stood and extended her hand. "Mr. Griffin, it's been a pleasure doing business with you." I was back in my truck when my phone rang. Tom's name appeared on the screen. Alec, where are you? Running errands. Why? You need to get down to Derek's office, like now. What's happening? Shannon Hale just walked in there with 2 other lawyers and a briefcase full of documents. Derek's secretary called her boyfriend, who called his sister, who called my wife. The whole building's buzzing. I smiled. Shannon worked fast. I had to admire that. I'll be right there. Derek's real estate office was in a converted Victorian house on Main Street, the kind of place that was supposed to convey established success and old money respectability. When I arrived, there was a small crowd gathered on the sidewalk outside, people pretending to window shop while obviously waiting to see what would happen next. Through the large front windows, I could see Derek gesticulating wildly while Shannon and her associates sat calmly at the conference table, documents spread between them. Even from outside, Derek looked like a man whose world was falling apart. Alec! I turned to see Marcia from the neighborhood hurrying over, her phone already out and recording. Is it true? She asked breathlessly. About Derek and the money? What money? People are saying he owes Shannon hundreds of thousands in hidden commissions, that he's been cheating on his taxes, lying to clients. Word traveled fast in a small town, especially when that word involved someone as prominent as Derek Hale getting his comeuppance. I wouldn't know anything about that, I said innocently. But you were married to Tricia, and she's been seeing Derek. So you must know something. Before I could answer, the office door burst open and Derek stormed out, his face red with anger and embarrassment. He spotted me immediately and marched over. This is all your fault, he shouted, loud enough for everyone on the street to hear. What's my fault, Derek? You know exactly what. Shannon, the lawyers, all of this. I'm sorry, I'm not following. Are you saying there's some kind of legal problem? Derek stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. Instead, he leaned in and hissed, You think you're so clever, but this isn't over. Actually, Derek, I think it is. At least the part where you get to pretend you're better than everyone else. I looked around at the crowd that had gathered, phones out, recording everything. Derek followed my gaze and seemed to realize for the first time that his meltdown was being broadcast to half the town. You want to know what's really pathetic? I continued, my voice carrying clearly in the afternoon air. You had everything. Successful business, nice house, respect in the community, and you threw it all away chasing after another man's wife. She came to me. Did she? Or did you spend months grooming her, telling her what she wanted to hear, making her feel special? Because I've got the text messages, Derek, all of them. The crowd was eating this up. I could see people sharing the videos in real time, the story spreading across social media like wildfire. Derek looked around desperately, realizing he was trapped. Anything he said would just make things worse, but staying silent made him look guilty. This town will forget about this in a week, he said finally. Maybe, but Shannon Hale won't, and neither will the state licensing board when they review your business practices, and neither will your clients when they realize how you've been operating. Derek's phone started ringing. Then it rang again and again. He pulled it out, and I could see the screen lighting up with call after call. Better answer that, I suggested. Sounds like people want to talk to you. Instead, Derek turned and stalked back toward his office, pushing through the crowd like a man fleeing a crime scene. I was walking back to my truck when my own phone buzzed. Text message from Shannon. Phase 1, complete. Derek owes me $347,000 in hidden commissions, plus interest and penalties. Thought you'd want to know. I typed back. Thank you for your efficiency. Thank you for the information. This was very satisfying. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, watching Derek's office through the windshield. People were still gathered outside, talking excitedly, sharing videos and updates. Derek's reputation was crumbling in real time, and everyone in town had front row seats. My phone rang again. This time it was Tricia. Alec, we need to talk. Do we? This has gone far enough. You're destroying innocent people. Innocent? Derek's been hiding money from his ex-wife and cheating on his taxes. You've been planning an affair for months. Which part of that sounds innocent to you? We never actually... Yet. But you were going to. And you were going to do it while still married to me, using money from our joint accounts to pay for your romantic dinners. Silence. Here's what's going to happen, Tricia. You're going to sign those divorce papers without any drama. You're going to split our assets according to the prenup you insisted on, and you're going to do it quietly. And if I don't, then phase 3 begins. And trust me, you don't want to see phase 3. I hung up and started the truck. In my rearview mirror, I could see Derek's office still surrounded by curious onlookers. His red Corvette was parked in the back lot, and I wondered if he'd managed to get the shrimp smell out of it yet. Probably not. Some stains are harder to remove than others. Back at the motel, I updated my project file. Phase 3, Professional Consequences, complete. But I wasn't done yet. Derek and Trisha thought they'd seen the worst of what I could do. They were wrong. Phase 4 was going to be legendary. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was deep asleep in the motel bed when my phone started buzzing insistently. The caller ID showed my home number, the house I'd shared with Trisha for 15 years, the one she was still living in while our lawyers sorted out the details. I almost didn't answer, but something about a 2 a.m. call from your estranged wife's location sets off alarm bells, even when you're trying to hate that person. Hello? Alec. Derek's voice slurred and angry. We need to talk. Derek, what are you doing at my house? It's not your house anymore, remember? Trisha invited me over. We've been having a few drinks, talking about you. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. Put Trisha on the phone. She's indisposed at the moment, but she wanted me to call you, to tell you that your little games are over. I could hear voices in the background, Trisha saying something I couldn't make out. She sounded as intoxicated as Derek. Derek, I'm going to say this once. Get out of my house. Or what? You'll send more lawyers after me? You'll post more of your little recordings online? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you're so smart, don't you? Smart enough to record this conversation. That shut him up for a moment. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to test that theory? More background noise. Then Derek's voice again, closer to the phone. You know what your problem is, Alec. You never knew when to quit. You should have just taken your lumps and walked away quietly. Instead, you had to make it personal. I didn't make it personal, Derek. You did that when you decided to pursue my wife. I just made it public. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. My business is ruined, my reputation is trashed, and I've got lawyers crawling all over my finances. Happy now? Getting there? Good. Because now it's my turn. The line went quiet, not disconnected. I could still hear background noise, but Derek had stopped talking. That's when I heard Trisha's voice, clearer now. Give me the phone. Some fumbling sounds. Then Trisha came on the line. Alec, we need to settle this. Tonight. Trisha, you're intoxicated. Go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. No, we'll talk now. Derek and I have been discussing our situation, and we've decided to make some changes. What kind of changes? The kind where we stop letting you control the narrative. Come home, Alec. Let's finish this like adults. Every instinct I had was screaming that this was a bad idea. Drunk people make terrible decisions, and desperate drunk people make catastrophic ones. But there was something in Trisha's voice, a finality that suggested this confrontation was inevitable. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Good. And Alec, come alone. The drive from the motel to my old house gave me time to think. Derek was desperate. His business was collapsing, his reputation was destroyed, and he was facing a massive financial judgment from Shannon. Desperate people do unpredictable things. Trisha was in a different kind of trouble. The audio recordings had made her a pariah in her social circle. Her job at the insurance company was safe for now, but her standing in the community was shot. She'd gone from queen bee to social outcast in a matter of weeks. Together, they were dangerous. Not physically. Neither of them had the stomach for actual violence, but dangerous in the way that cornered animals are dangerous. They might do something stupid, something that would force me to escalate beyond what I'd planned. I parked across the street from the house and sat for a moment, studying the scene. The porch light was on, and I could see movement through the living room windows. Derek's Corvette was in the driveway, parked at an angle that suggested either carelessness or impairment. My phone buzzed. Text message from Tom. Saw your truck. Everything okay? I typed back. Fine, just tying up loose ends. Want backup? No, but if you don't hear from me in an hour, call the police. Alec. I'm not going to do anything stupid, Tom, but they might. I put the phone in my pocket and walked up to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Trisha stood in the doorway, still beautiful despite everything, still capable of making my heart skip a beat even after all the hurt and betrayal. She was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago, the one she'd claimed to love but had never worn. Hello, Alec. Trisha. She stepped aside to let me in. The living room looked exactly the same as it had on game night. Same furniture, same decorations, same coffee table where I'd served divorce papers to my wife in front of our friends. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Charged. Dangerous. Derek was sprawling on the couch, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table next to him. He looked up when I entered, his eyes unfocused but hostile. Well, the man of the hour. Derek. I stayed standing, keeping my distance. You look terrible. Thanks to you. Thanks to your own choices. I just made sure people knew about them. Trisha closed the door behind me and walked over to stand next to Derek. The symbolism wasn't lost on me, them on one side, me on the other. We've been talking, she said, about everything that's happened, about what comes next. And what comes next? Derek struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. What comes next is you backing off. No more lawyers, no more recordings, no more public humiliation. In exchange for what? In exchange for us not telling everyone the truth about you. I almost laughed. What truth is that? Trisha pulled out her phone and held it up. The truth about your drinking problem, about the times you hit me, about your gambling issues and the money you stole from our joint accounts. None of that is true, isn't it? Because we've got photos of bruises, bank records showing suspicious withdrawals, and plenty of witnesses who'll testify about your erratic behavior. Now I understood. They were going to try to flip the script, make me the villain in their story. It was actually clever in a desperate, pathetic way. You're going to fabricate evidence. We're going to tell our side of the story, Derek said. The side where you're a controlling husband who snapped when his wife tried to leave him. And you think people will believe that? People believe what they want to believe, Trisha said, especially when the alternative is admitting they were wrong about someone they thought they knew. I looked around the room, at the house I'd helped pay for, at the furniture we'd picked out together, at the woman I'd loved for 15 years. Then I looked at Derek, drunk and desperate, and still trying to play the alpha male. You know what? I said. You're right. They both looked surprised. I have been controlling the narrative. I have been manipulating public opinion. And I have been systematically destroying your reputations for my own satisfaction. So you admit it, Derek said. Absolutely. And I'm not done yet. I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing them the screen. It was open to a live stream app, and the viewer count was climbing rapidly. Say hello to the internet, folks. We're live. Trisha's face went white. Turn that off? No, I don't think I will. See, you two made a critical error. You assumed I came here unprepared. But the thing about being married to someone for 15 years is that you learn their patterns. And your pattern, Trisha, is to record everything for social media. I gestured around the room. So I figured, why not give you what you want? A chance to tell your side of the story, live, unedited, to anyone who wants to listen. The viewer count was approaching 300 and climbing fast. Comments were streaming across the screen faster than I could read them. You see, folks, I continued, addressing the camera. My wife and her boyfriend here have a proposal. They want me to stop exposing their affair, their lies, and their various legal troubles. In exchange, they're going to fabricate evidence that I'm a violent and controlling husband. Derek lunged toward me, trying to grab the phone. I stepped back easily. 15 years of avoiding Trisha's flying objects had given me good reflexes. Turn it off, he shouted. Derek Hale, everyone, I announced to the camera. Real estate agent, tax evader, and now attempting to destroy evidence of his own blackmail attempt. The comments were going crazy. People were sharing the stream, tagging friends, recording their own videos of my video. Within minutes, half the town would be watching. This is what desperation looks like, I continued, panning the camera to show Derek's red face and Trisha's horrified expression. When people who've been living lies for years finally get caught, they don't apologize. They don't admit wrongdoing. They double down. Alec, please, Trisha said, her voice cracking. Turn off the camera. We can work this out. Can we? Because 5 minutes ago you were threatening to frame me for domestic violence. That doesn't sound like someone who wants to work things out. The viewer count hit 500. Then 600. The local news station's Facebook page had picked up the stream and was sharing it with their 50,000 followers. You want to tell your side of the story? I asked, turning the camera toward them. Here's your chance. Tell everyone watching why you think it's okay to cheat on your spouse. Explain why hiding money from your ex-wife is justified. Help us understand why I'm the villain here. Neither of them said anything. They just stood there, looking like deer caught in headlights. while hundreds of people watched and commented and shared. No? Nothing to say? That's surprising. You both had plenty to say when you thought no one was listening. I turned the camera back toward myself. Well, folks, I think we've seen enough. My name is Alec Griffin, and for 15 years I was married to a woman who thought I was weak, stupid, and beneath her notice. For months I watched her plan an affair with a man who thought he was untouchable. I paused, looking directly into the camera. Turns out they were both wrong. I wasn't weak, I was patient, I wasn't stupid, I was observant, and I definitely wasn't beneath notice. The viewer count hit 800. So here's how this ends. Trisha, you're going to sign those divorce papers tomorrow morning. Derek, you're going to stay away from both of us while you deal with your legal problems. And both of you are going to remember that actions have consequences. I ended the stream and put my phone away. The silence in the room was deafening. You just destroyed us, Trisha whispered. No, you destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone got to watch. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Derek? Next time you want to threaten someone, make sure they're not smarter than you think they are. I left them standing in the living room of what used to be my home. Two people who'd thought they were the stars of their own story, finally realizing they'd been cast as the villains all along. The drive back to the motel was peaceful. My phone was buzzing constantly with notifications, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow, I'd deal with the aftermath. Tonight, I just wanted to enjoy the silence. Back in room 237, I opened my laptop one last time and updated my project file. Phase 4, the grand finale, complete. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The next morning, Trisha signed the divorce papers without a single complaint.